I knew there was demand in the Middle East for women plastic surgeons. So I have 100% created this opportunity for myself. I go once a quarter or so over to Dubai and I operate there. While I was there that day on vacation or that week on vacation, I actually just cold called clinics. I sent emails, I sent letters. I spent some time of my vacation going to meet with people at clinics. And that's the thing, where there's a will, there is a way. When I came back, then COVID happened, everything kind of got put on hold. But I was just talking about it with one of my patients who had a pretty complicated revision case that no one else wanted to take on. I did it. He was happy. My patient said, oh, well, my brother's the CEO of the largest healthcare corporation Perfect. Or the largest healthcare company in the Middle East. So they flew me out there. Like I said, I wanted this to happen. The hospital that I was talking to ended up hiring me. I'm still in the process of building it and growing it, and I'm really glad I did it.
Welcome back to Beauty Unveiled. I'm Dr. Angela Sturm, and today you'll hear from Dr. Regina Rodman. Her journey took her from Minnesota to Chicago, Dubai, and even Houston. So we were going to talk about life, being a female business owner, being a facial plastic surgeon, and everything else. So if you enjoy this episode, subscribe to the show and share with your family and friends at drangelasturm.com. So welcome.
Thank you. I think it's so cool you're doing this. Thank you. I'm honored to be a guest on your new podcast.
Well, I'm glad you're here. We've been friends forever, since Herman days.
Yeah. Since she was my fellow. Well, I was a second-year resident, and we took call together, and we saved some lives.
Yes.
Literally, epiglottitis. We were had to intubate this patient that was about to die. And we really bonded, and we've been friends ever since.
Friends ever since. We're like, yep, that's definitely it. I've only seen it in a book, and that's okay. We're going to do it.
Okay, we're going to be fine.
One of those, I guess it's an advantage of being at a really busy hospital like that. I was like, oh, yeah, I've been at Ben Taub. No. Herman was it was a different animal.
It's a special kind of trauma and a special patient trauma, I mean.
and bonding for the residents and fellows. But it's good. It's a great surgical experience. So then you feel confident doing other things because you're like, well, we did do a lot.
Yeah, Indeed.
So what made you end up here in the swarmy, sultry Houston and,
Yeah. So... I think a lot of my story, both in just facial plastics and what I'm doing today, how I ended up in Houston, you just kind of go where life takes you. So I did I did medical school in Chicago. I did my general surgery there. Applied for to be clear, I applied my application to residency. There's a long story, but basically one of my letters of reference didn't get in on time, so my application wasn't complete, so I did not match my first year. So that I just would like to be super transparent about that. There is hope for med students out there if you don't match. Mine, I think, wasn't because of qualifications, but just kind of a mishap, but it's still hard to match a second time, but you can do it. I did research. I tried to boost my application. I applied widely. But I applied widely, and I got an interview at actually UTMB in Galveston, and I had been to Texas once. I drove through it on the way to New Mexico. And so I was like, hey, whatever. I was like, I'm taking all the interviews. I went down to that program, and I liked it. I ended up matching there. Once I got there, the program went through a lot of changes, and so I actually transferred up to UT Houston. They had an open spot, which is also very, very rare, but it just worked out for me. And surprisingly, or to my surprise anyway, I ended up really liking Houston. So I came from Chicago. I thought for sure I was going to end up in Chicago or New York. But I went away. I went to upstate New York for training, for my fellowship training. But I ultimately came back to Houston because I just really liked it here. So it's a big city, but you can drive, you can park. We took call in the middle of the night. That's painful to have to get it in the middle of the night and drive to the hospital. being able to do it in not freezing cold weather where you have to dig your car out of snow.
Yeah.
I was like, I like this.
We wouldn't know what to do with snow here.
Yeah. So, and it's just, I don't know. It's like there's a great medical community. I met a lot of good people. And so I decided to come back here after I graduated from fellowship to start my practice.
You're one of the few people that's craniofacial and does cosmetic, and it's like a really unique blend, I think, that brings a lot to the table.
Yeah, so that's another, you just go where life takes you. So I went into fellowship. I was 100%, I want to do academics. I wanted to do microvascular free flap reconstruction. So these big reconstructions from cancer patients. I like to do trauma, including like the disaster full face panfacial fractures. On trauma patients, I like to do kind of these big surgeries. So I went to a fellowship where I did microvascular training. I also did a lot of craniofacial training. So we did craniosynostosis. So for anyone who doesn't know, that's babies can be born or develop shortly after birth at skull deformity. It's a big surgery. You do it combined with neurosurgery. I also did a lot of jaw surgery, both in babies and in adults, distractions, double jaw surgery. And my plan, I was going to do academics. I was going to go back to University of Texas where I did my residency. It just ended up not working out. They had hired somebody the year before. They didn't really have an opening. And like, okay, what am I going to do? I joined a private practice with another craniofacial surgeon. And you know, I was like, okay, I have all this training. I'm good at doing this bony work. Like, but what do I do with that? Because there's not a ton of those cases. And in Houston, there's already 2 very big children's hospitals. So kind of patients get funneled into there. So I started thinking, like, what can I do with my skills? And V-line surgery, some of the things that are really popular in South Korea to like slim and narrow the jaw. I thought, well, I'm good at jaw surgery. I'm good at bone work. I'm going to try that. I learned a little bit about gender affirming surgery. Dr. Sturm at the time was offering that. So I asked her a lot of questions.
We got to do cases together.
Yeah. So she was,
you get out the saw and I'm like, whoop, I'm going to go take a break.
So she was doing these beautiful noses and lip lifts and lipo, you know, facelifts. And I asked her, well, who's doing your chin, jaw, and forehead or brow bossing? And she was like, oh, I just don't really offer that part. And so we teamed up and started doing cases together, which was really great.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun to do.
And it just kind of took off. And so now a lot of what I do is cosmetic bony work. So both for transgender patients, but also cisgender patients that just feel like their forehead's too big, their jaw's too big. And so I found this like nice little niche, which 10 years ago, I really didn't even know that this stuff existed. I thought I was going to be a cancer surgeon, but here I am.
Yeah, life takes you into interesting places.
Yeah.
And then tell us about your job in Dubai.
Yes. So I work part-time, or I go once a quarter or so over to Dubai and I operate there. So a lot of the surgeries that I do, like I was saying, the bony cosmetic work, I found there's really no one in that area doing those kind of surgeries. And so I go there about once a quarter for a week or so and do surgery. The thing I would like to share, in addition to you still can match, you can still have an international practice and travel all over the world and get paid to do it.
And, you know, and that shows your tenacity and like sticking to things. Yeah. And, you know, like these are very good qualities.
Yes. So, and that's the thing, where there's a will, there is a way. So what happened, I went to Dubai actually on vacation in like 2018, and I just loved it. I thought the city was so cool. It was just so different, so interesting. I knew there was demand in the Middle East for women plastic surgeons. A lot of the Muslim women who wear a hijab, they can take it off for medical reasons, but their husband often has to accompany them, and there's a lot of, it's a little bit more complicated with plastics because it's medicine, but it's very elective. So women plastic surgeons, especially Western trained women plastic surgeons, are in demand there because it just kind of simplifies the whole process. So I knew that because I had a colleague who was operating in Kuwait at the time. And so I just made this happen. So I have 100% created this opportunity for myself. So while I was there that day on vacation, or that week on vacation, I actually just cold called clinics. I sent emails, I sent letters. I spent some time of my vacation going to meet with people at clinics. When I came back, I put some feelers out. There's a lot of people on the web that kind of help coordinate these things. Then COVID happened. Everything kind of got put on hold. But I was just talking about it with one of my patients who had a pretty complicated revision case that no one else wanted to take on. I did it. He was happy. And I was just talking about, I'd like to go to Dubai. I was trying to make that happen. And then just, luck favors the prepared. Yeah. I had already kind of had an idea of what I wanted it to look like, and I had an idea of what I wanted to do. And so my patient said, my brother's the CEO of the largest healthcare corporation or the largest healthcare company in the Middle East. And I was like, no, I do not know that. So brother came to visit. Yeah. Brother came to Houston to visit patient. They did, they wanted to do some injectables, wanted to talk to me. We got along really well. So they flew me out there. And, like I said, I wanted this to happen. And actually they said, we're going to fly you out there. A bunch of stuff happened. I know that this guy, he's the CEO of this huge corporation. He's busy. I just booked myself a flight and I was like, hey, I'm coming to Dubai. Could I, interview with you guys while I'm there? I was not going to Dubai for any other reason, but I was like, I'm going to be there for a week, So and then they really took over, put me up, got me a driver, connected me to all these people. And so I just went and explained what I did and how it's unique. And, as far as I could tell, nobody else was doing it. So the hospital that I was talking to ended up hiring me. I'm still in the process of building it and growing it. But, they fly me out there business class. It's really nice. They put me up. I've gotten to meet really cool and interesting people from all over the world. So it's something I'm really glad I did it. And I think thinking back about that, every time I go, I get a million text messages and emails and like, I want to go. Like, how did you get chosen for that? Or how'd you get picked for that? And I made it happen. And I think that's like an important thing because I think, there's statistics about how women will wait until they're 100% qualified for a job before they apply or, 80, 90% or whatever. There's different statistics, but like men will apply when they're 50% qualified. Right. I was like, hey, you're qualified to do this. Sure, you don't know that much about Dubai or how medicine works, but like you can figure it out. And so I just felt like I deserve this. I'm going to make this happen. And I did. Yeah. And so when people ask like, how did you get the opportunity? Like I created it.
You made it. Yeah.
And, I have a couple other powerful women colleagues who have done similar things and have the same story. Like they wanted to speak at some meeting or they wanted to go travel somewhere and just created a path for themselves, not waiting for somebody to invite them, not waiting to, the universe to discover them. Like they have made that known. And so I took some advice from them and I was like, I'm going to do the same thing.
Look, now you're international practice. And so how's that practice different from this one, like patient-wise or?
So it's still building. So that's the thing that was a little hard for me to get used to is I'm busy here. And so I just thought, I'll just show up and I'll be busy there. Medicine there is different. It's fundamentally the same, but it's a lot more commercial. There's a lot more marketing. The whole culture is very, very plugged into social media. So there's a lot of things, I would almost say like there's a lot of gimmicks and things I see with doctors there. And so I'm trying to find the balance where I'm marketing myself, but in an honest and authentic way and advertising truths with true photos. There's that. But then Dubai is interesting because only actually about 20% of the people there are Emirati. The other 80% are on visas or expats from other countries. So that's really what's been cool is I have patients that speak like 5 languages and they're like greeting one person in French and then they're speaking Arabic and then they talk to me in English and I'm like, wow, like that's, crazy cool. The other thing that's a little different is I am licensed there through the hospital. Like here we have our own private medical license, and then we are credentialed to work at different hospitals, but we can go wherever we want as private practice doctors, like me and Dr. Sturm. There you actually get your license through the hospital. So that's the only place I can work. So I'm employed by the hospital. I work at that hospital, and that's the only place I go. Which is, it's great for, going there once a quarter. I think that it would be an adjustment if I ever wanted to go there full time, because I'm just used to having choices. And if one surgery center makes me mad, I'll go to another one.
You have options.
Yeah, you have options, and I have a little bit of power. Whereas there, it's you just have one place. But I also think, in a lot of ways, they hold doctors in a high regard. And I feel actually more respected. I was a little worried about being a woman in the Middle East, but just in general, I think they hold doctors, especially surgeons, in very high regard. And so I actually feel more respected there than I do here sometimes.
Yeah, just a different culture around medicine and how physicians are treated.
And I don't think it's just physicians here, but I think we just kind of now have like this Amazon culture where you can order anything and you can get anything delivered in 5 minutes, and everybody wants everything instantly. And medicine has kind of fallen into that where, get this Insulif and you're going to be beautiful tomorrow. And then nobody wants downtime. Not everybody, obviously, but I think there's a little bit more sort of demand culture here, whereas their doctors are respected. And I think, I don't know, I just sometimes when I'm explaining stuff to patients or to the staff, the vibe is just a little bit different, and it's actually very nice.
Yeah.
And surprisingly, I have never felt any kind of discrimination just by being female. Like, I think just kind of at least the way that I feel is the hospital where I go is like doctors are doctors, and they seem to just kind of treat everybody politely with respect and helpful. And it's like that here too, but not always.
Yeah, just a little bit different.
Yeah.
A little bit different. And your practice here, you own your practice, and we talk about this a lot, being practice owners and female surgeons. And I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the advice that we get about being practice owners, and does that really translate? Because I very much appreciate all the men that have stepped up and like taught me things, and they've helped me be where I am. But some of the advice that's given, like especially about leadership and things like that, I think it doesn't translate the same when you're female.
It doesn't. I agree. And I think there is a built-in barrier between a male doctor and a female staff person. And obviously not everyone in medicine is staff, but nurses are still predominantly women. A lot of the medical assistants are women, especially in cosmetics and aesthetic medicine. So a lot of times you're dealing with a primarily female staff. There's just a built-in barrier, I think, by being a man. And I think being an older man with a young female staff, there's some built-in differences. And so there's just some sort of like a built-in separation, whereas as women, and especially as young women, like a lot of my staff are my same age, we are a little bit more like peers. And so I've had to work to create some boundaries and create just like a healthy respect. Nobody's better than anybody else, but at the same time, I just for example, often get a lot of information about their bodily functions or what's going on in their dating life, and I just can't imagine that same information is shared with like an older male doctor. And some of that stuff is, I love that they feel comfortable with me, and I love that we can connect like that, but sometimes I'm like, I need to be taking care of patients. Like, I can't hear about your date last night or whatever. And so it's just like navigating that where we're friends and we're close. And I think the benefit of the flip side is that I feel like I'm super close to my staff, and I love that I know everything that's going on in their life. But at the end of the day, I'm their boss. And so I don't need to know everything. And so like navigating that, I've really had to work on it. It's been helpful. Dr. Sturm and I talk about it all the time. We also have a group of women where we talk about things like this, because there's a happy place in between where you're close and you're tight knit, but you know, I'm still the boss. And the reality is if I stop paying them, like we're not probably going to spend this much time together. And so, you know, how to have a professional but friendly relationship. We don't get any advice about that.
Yeah, because it's different. You know, I didn't have anyone in residency or fellowship or anything that was in that same situation to know what to say, you know. And I think a lot of the things I see about like burnout and physicians and women, a lot of it is like establishing boundaries, which we have a hard time with because we do this because we like people. We like to be around people. We like to talk to them. We like to hear their story. You know, like I enjoy that. But then I also have to like remind myself, okay, I have to have these boundaries because otherwise it burns the candle at both ends because you're trying to do the medicine, you're trying to do the, you know, the managing, and it's hard to do everything all at once, but it's like trying to figure out what works.
Yeah.
And I feel like I manage differently than some of my male counterparts do. Like just the way that I do things is different. You know?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's also just literally not enough time in the day. So I found myself sometimes, you know, they're telling me about their problems with their significant other after, you know, we finish clinic, and then they want to talk to me about this. And like I said, I love that they feel close to me like that and we can talk about that, but then it's 7:30 and I'm like, well, now I didn't exercise and I'm probably don't have time to prepare any food for tomorrow, and then I'm frustrated because I don't have enough time to do stuff. And so yeah, there's some happy medium in there, but it takes some work to find it. And I also just my management style is a lot more sort of collegial group decision. Like I like to get a lot of feedback. I like to hear people's opinions. I like to hear what's working and what's not working. But then same there, it's like I want to get the feedback, but at the end of the day, I'm responsible. So if stuff doesn't go well or something happens with the patient, it's my responsibility. So I want I've had to find a place where I want feedback, but it's not a totally equal decision because at the end, it's my practice, my patients, and I'm the one that's, you know, legally and emotionally responsible.
Yeah, and it's like, it's information. Like I'm the same way where I like to talk about the staff about everything and okay, this is what we're doing and the decisions we're making, and I get their information. I'm like, okay, so here's what we're doing, you know, like I have weighed it all out and I hear you and hear everybody's different sides and then move forward, you know, because you can't make everyone happy, but you can do things that will be for the greater good, you know, and I think a good team is going to be on board with that.
Yeah. But I think that's another thing that just wasn't modeled for me. I think it was a lot of, this is the way I do it. This is the way we're doing things. Get on or get out, which just isn't my style. Yeah. But finding the happy medium place is what I've had to actually like dedicate a lot of thought and effort to.
Finding that thing that works for you and your team and, you know, the direction that you want to go. And I feel like I've spent a lot of time thinking about like goals and direction and, you know, team and who fits where and how to make all of that happen. Yeah. And which is good. It's a good exercise. Yeah. So what's like a memorable like turning point in your career or training or that you think about? Like, I feel like we all have those cases that you're like, oh yeah, this was like, made me know I was on the right path or go a different way or, you know what I mean?
I still don't know that I'm on the right path. That's life. Like That's life. I'm just rolling with it. I just roll with it day to day. No, I'm on the right path. But I think like I would say like for a while, didn't know if I was going to get into residency. You know, I mean, that was a devastating year. It was like something so simple, a letter of recommendation that I was told got turned in, but it didn't actually get turned in. And I missed the application deadline. I mean, it was a devastating year because I just felt like this was what I was supposed to do with my life. Ended up working out. I matched and then still had to change programs to kind of find the right fit for me, but it worked out. I got into the fellowship that I wanted to. Came back and I joined a group actually originally. And there was a lot of great things about being in the group. I loved working with the other doctors. I loved the camaraderie. But there was also, you know, like any practice has issues. And then there was just kind of this turning point where the practice was going one way and I didn't want to do that. And so I had the choice to, go one way or find something else. And I felt like, well, I was 2.5 years out of training. I wasn't that busy. And so, I was like, I mean, I have to join someone else. I need to be under somebody else's wing. I joined a different doctor. That really didn't work out. And so I just remember this moment of like, and I would say in that interim time, I also I'd talked to a few doctors before making the leap. I ended up joining this one person, didn't work out. But in that time, the other people I had talked to previously had lost their junior partner. And so I remember thinking like, oh, well, that's probably not a better option. That doesn't look like a better option. And then it just kind of hit me. I was like, you just got to do this yourself. Like you just, and that had always been my plan, but my plan was, I'm going to join someone else. I'll work for them for a few years, save some money, make a plan, make a layout, find some space. And then, where I wasn't definitely not a good fit. And I just, one day was like, no, you just got to do this yourself. You have to jump off the cliff and just do it. And I had so much self-doubt. Like, can I do this? Can I, will I even be able to afford my rent? Like, can I have a staff? Can I, I don't know if I'm going to be busy enough. What if I slow down? But I mean, all the thoughts, like all the doubts, all the thoughts. But, that's another thing. I think sometimes life has a way of just pushing you where you needed to go, because
out of the nest.
That's the thing. Like if one of the jobs had worked out, like even if it wasn't great, I mean, would I still stay there and just kind of be discontent, but stay? Probably, maybe, I don't know. But I just had no other option. So I was like, okay, I'm opening my own practice, and I had no money and no starter fund. I took out a loan and again, just kind of made it happen. It was rough. I opened, saw a few patients, and then I closed the office because it wasn't built out when I started. So we closed the office to do all the build out for like a month. And then we were open for, I think, 3.5 weeks. And then COVID happened and I shut my practice down. I had just hired 3 new staff, one who had actually moved across the country to work for me. She worked for me for 9 days, and then the world closed. So stressful. I remember being like, oh my God, did I make a mistake? Like, what am I doing? And I still ask that question sometimes. but overall, I mean, like, it has given me really like a lot of freedom to kind of just direct where I want to go, to have the hours that I want, to do the cases that I want. And there's downsides, stresses with running a practice also, but I did it. I'm doing it.
You're doing it.
Yeah. So
you're doing a great job.
I think that was probably the biggest. I never thought, like I said in the beginning, I wanted to be an academic. I just wanted to work for a university. And so I just remember there's like this short period of time where I was like, you just have to do this. You're going to go into private practice, private solo practice, and you're going to be fine. It's going to be rough and it's going to be hard, but it's going to be fine. Mm-hmm. And most of the time it is. Yeah. No, it is fine. Good. There's just stresses. I mean, we talk about it too. There's just stresses with hiring and staff and where you're going to do your surgeries, and somebody's sick or stuff happens. And when you work in a small office, those things end up being kind of big things. But we are making it, both of us. We open our practices at similar times, so we're kind of on the same trajectory.
Right, yeah. Lots of the same.
First we're like, what kind of wallpaper are you using? Well, who are you buying your furniture from? And now we're like, tell me about your office manager. Tell me how you're triaging things. Mm-hmm. So we have come a long way.
Yes, we've come a long way. Well, thank you for sharing your inspirational journey, and just to go for it. Sometimes you just have to go for it and stick with it and be like, that's what I want and that's what I'm doing, or this is where I think I'm going, or life pushes you out of the nest. Yeah, just go for it.
And then, and also just again, like my other take-home point is, it's hard. I mean, it is really hard sometimes, and there's times when I'm like, I'm just going to close down. I can't do this. I can't do this. So it's not like, oh, I had this decision and I lived happily ever after. Like, there is real struggles that come with being responsible for staff's wages and your patients. And I mean, being the primary breadwinner at home, there's a lot of stress that comes with it. There's a lot of not great feelings that come with it. But I think anything that's challenging and really worth doing comes with a lot of stress and downsides too. So, I hope it's inspirational, but I also sometimes get frustrated with social media. Like, oh, this happened and now I'm killing everything. Now I'm doing great. I think I am doing great, but that doesn't mean everything is great all of the time. And I think I try to remind myself, like, hard things feel hard. But that doesn't mean that they're not worth doing.
Right. And like you said, the ones that are worth doing, they are hard. If it was easy, everybody would do it. If easy, it wouldn't be as fun. Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing and being here with me and sharing your story with everyone.
Thank you for having me.
And tell us where everyone can find you.
So social media, Dr. Rodman, so Dr.Rodman is my Instagram. I think also Facebook is the same. And then our TikTok is faceforwardhouston.com, which is also my website, faceforwardhouston.com.
Awesome. Thank you. And if you like this podcast and want to watch more, you can find us at drangela.sturm.com and share with your friends and family.
And I'll be subscribing.
Yes.